I'm James Wright. Welcome to my shop. This is a kind of a special edition. I had a question from Alan Robinson over at the Woodworking Junkie. I'll leave a link to his channel in the description below, and you really got to check it out. He does some fun things. He does walkthroughs of abandoned houses and a lot of woodworking and a bunch of other things. Really cool guy, so go check that out. But one of the things he was asking is, want to get more into hand tools. How do you use, manage, and sharpen chisels? And so I just wanted to do a quick video about some of the things that I do with chisels that might help you out. When you're getting into hand tools, I really suggest a good set of chisels is the first thing you should get. Some people say a plane, some people say a saw, but really chisels are the basis of all hand tools. And if you think about it, a plane is nothing more than a chisel in a jig. And a saw is nothing more than a whole bunch of chisels in a row, very small ones. And in the case of what I have, sometimes a chisel is actually used inside of a plane. So I made this plane out of an old chisel. So chisels are extremely useful. Once you master a chisel and learn how to use it and how to sharpen it and how to manage it, you can manage all the other tools that come in a hand tool shop. So come along and let's take a look at that. So to start with, all I'm going to be talking about is the basic hand chisel, and particularly a cheap hand chisel. I'm not going to be talking about socket versus tang. That's a whole other discussion. Not talking about mortise chisels or dovetailing chisels or English versus Western chisels. I just want to talk about the basic bench chisel. And for most people starting out, I really suggest that you go cheap. As long as the steel is decent, that's what you're looking for. And even if it doesn't hold an edge for that long, it's okay, you can resharpen it. And plus, the more you sharpen it, the more you learn how to do it well, and you hone your skill a little faster. When I first started, my first set of chisels were these cheap plastic things I got at Menards. I think the set was like $5. And they are hunks of junk. They're really, really trashy. But they cut. They work just well, and I made plenty of mortise and tenons. And I even did dovetails with these, so they work. And for the price, that's fantastic. But eventually you want something a little better. And what I usually suggest now is you go out and you get one of these two sets. If you're in America, Harbor Freight makes this set. It's like $10. And they're actually really, really good. I'm very pleased with them. They're not the best steel in the world, but they are really darn close. And if you're in Europe or England, I believe the company, that one goes over there. I believe the company is Aldi, and you can get these. And these are in the metric, and these ones are standard. And these are, I really like these. These are a much better steel and really solid quality. They're great. For the person starting out, this is all you need. Now when they first come to you, they have a little plastic sleeve. The very first thing I do is I throw it away. I have cut myself several times putting that sleeve on and off. And so as long as you're just careful with the point and you store them well, you're not going to have a problem with that. So just get rid of the sleeve. Other than that, for regular maintenance, in other words day-to-day use, I actually have a jar that I have a towel rolled up in and I put oil into it. I am currently using olive oil. I'm going to be using that for a couple of months to play with it, and I really like it so far. It dries out a little bit faster, but it doesn't leave any residue, and it's a really nice oil. A lot of people use a mineral oil or other tool oils that work just as well. Some say better, but everyone has a different type of oil. I've heard hundreds of different types of oils. Olive oil for me is working really well right now. Otherwise, for maintenance, it's just about how you store them, where you store them. When you're working with a regular tang chisel, you can hold it by the handle. I actually have holes that these go in that protect the tip so the tip isn't hanging down on anything. If you're working with a socket chisel, make sure you're always holding the metal because the handle can come off the socket. But that's about it for maintenance and storage. They're pretty basic. Be careful, there's a sharp end here. There you go. They're straightforward in all their way. So let's talk for a moment about usage. Basically, there are two sides to the chisel. You have your beveled side and you have your back or flat side. And where those two meet creates a wedge or a point. And all it is about that edge. And some people make that angle thin and some people make it thicker. So some people might make it out to like 20, 22 degrees. Some people take it all the way back to 30, 35 degrees I've seen. I usually keep mine between 25 and 30 degrees. I sharpen all of my regular bench chisels at 25. But that allows you to use it in two different ways. Number one, you can use it with the bevel side up, and that allows you to cut a straight line into the wood. Because you're referencing off of this side, it's going to go straight in line with this, basically. And then if you flip it around the other way with the wedge in there, then you can actually curve into things. And so that's how I was able to make this arch, is with the bevel down. It allowed me to then curve all the way along it. So you get more control and more force, maybe not more force, but more control, and you get to adjust your depth of cut with the bevel down. That's why almost all bench, most traditional bench planes have the bevel down, and a lot of other things have the bevel down. It's just far more control. Then the next thing to be concerned with is, okay, how do you use it? Now, a lot of my use, I'm actually just using my hand, and I'll put the tip in and I'll rock the chisel back and forth to work in. Like if I'm cutting in a shoulder on a tenon, I'll just put the shoulder in there and work it back and forth. I won't use a chisel. But if I'm really cutting into things, like when I'm taking the meat out of this, I have this clamped, and then I'll have a mallet tapping the back of this going in there. If I'm really seriously smacking this, I'm going to be doing damage to the wood in some way or another, or it's probably going to be splitting out. But there are times when you want to do that, and so sometimes I'll be grabbing my larger mallet. Now you'll notice that both of my regular chisel mallets are wood, and that's because this is a wooden surface. I'm kind of picky about it. I don't like using a metal on a wooden surface, but as you can see, that's all beat up, so I mean the metal's really not going to hurt it. A lot of people use a metal mallet on their wooden chisels. I just wouldn't use a wooden mallet on a metal chisel. So you'll see a lot of the new chisels have a metal end. You're going to be just banging up your mallet, and it's not good. The mallets are something you want to last for a while. You can replace a handle on a chisel pretty easily. When it comes to sharpening your chisel, there are two main types of sharpening. Not methods, but types of sharpening you're going to do. Number one, you've been using it for a while and you just need to re-hone it. You need to get the edge back in there. It's slightly getting dinged up. Or number two, you just bought the chisel and you need to make it good. Or you accidentally dropped it on the ground and you took a chip out of it. There are different types of sharpening. Number one, if you buy it from the store or you did some damage to it, you're going to need to flatten out the back. And that's basically what it sounds like. You go through the grits just like you're going to be sharpening, and you get a nice flat surface on the back. This particular one has a bit of a concave here, but you can see how I've sharpened really nicely right up at the tip. See if you can see that right there. All the way along the tip, it's nice and flat, and then registered along these edges, it's nice and flat as well. So it's hollow right here, which is fine because as I flatten it a few more times in the future, it will eventually bring that all down nice, and it doesn't matter as much as the tip right there. And then you do your bevel. I like to do them separately. I like to do all the back and get that up nice and clean and have a burr sticking up on the front, and then do the tip completely. But anytime I'm just doing a regular touch-up sharpening, I'm just going to be working on the bevel. Some people like to put a compound bevel in there, and they'll put a secondary right up at the front, just so you're only sharpening a little bit area. I'm not a huge fan of that. I prefer to just sharpen the whole bevel. So I'm going to be going through how do you do that right now and show you that basically. Now, when you're first getting started, it might be good to get a jig. This is one from Veritas. Really nice jig. A bit more pricey than some, but this thing will treat you really well. I honestly, with chisels, there's a large flat surface. I like to just do them by hand. So when I place it on the stone, this is a whetstone. I picked this up on Amazon. I think it was like 20-30 bucks when I purchased it. It's lasted me quite a while. It's fairly cheap and works really well. The other thing, I have this one from Harbor Freight that I got a while ago, and it's a hunk of junk, and I really don't suggest you go out and get a cheap one like this. $25 to $30 for a stone is really good. This one is 1,000 grit and 4,000 grit. Remember correctly? Yeah, 1,000 grit, 4,000 grit. And I really like that. It's just when you're first getting a stone going, you need something a little more rough. And so I'll use this, or I'll just use sandpaper to take the rough spots off. But once I'm actually sharpening, I'll put the tip on here, and I rock it forward until it registers. And you'll notice when it hits, it feels solid. And then I keep both fingers right up here at the tip, and then a couple fingers back here holding onto the chisel. And they're not holding the chisel as much as just taking the weight off. And my fingers holding down are what are actually holding the force on it. Yeah, so basically once that's on there, I want to keep the fingers. I don't want the fingers to touch the tip there. Every now and then I've had them slide forward when I'm going on it, and I'll actually shave a piece of skin off the tip of my finger. Not so good. So I'll take this, register on the tip, and I lock my arms in place. I lock my elbows and my wrist and everything all the way down to my legs, and I pivot at my ankles. So I'm standing on the ground and I'll pivot at my ankles. I slide it forward, making sure I keep my registration right. And I'll go back and forth a few times just to make sure I'm focused correctly, and then I go into a figure 8 pattern. Now, this takes a lot of practice to get right, but once you've done it a few times, it becomes very, very easy to do. And the figure 8 pattern is sort of like a random orbital sander in that it takes off grit in different directions every time. So I'll do it on this 1000 grit, and then I'll check the tip, and I'll make sure I get a good grind all the way across it. The other thing I'm looking for is I'll rub my finger along the back, and I'll make sure I have a burr that's curling over that way. And I do have a burr curling all the way that way. So I flip the stone over, go to the 4000 grit, and again I'll register it, feel it, lock my arms and elbows, and then go into the figure 8. That should be about right. And I'll just make sure that it's hit all the way across, and I'll get this. It's not quite shiny, it's dull. But I don't see the scratches from the 1000 grit. I see more of a dull surface from the 4000 grit. And I'll make sure I got that all the way across the tip. And then on this one, on the back here, because I still have a little bit of a concave on this one, because I got this chisel not that long ago. But I still have my burr all the way across the tip. So now it's on to honing. Now for honing, I just have this strap of leather. Some people glue it down to a board. Just pretty simple. And then from Harbor Freight, I just got some polishing compound. Comes in different colors. I like the gray. Sometimes I like the green zinc. But for my chisels and most things, I just use the gray for the steel work. And then I also have this piece of 1x4. I have the compound on here. It's a nice flat surface. So with this, when I first starting, I hone the back of the chisel. But for the bevel side, I like to use some leather. And I'll take the polishing compound and charge it up. I don't need to charge this one much at all. It's pretty full still. You can see how it's been used over time. And I just keep this fairly full of the compound. Then I meet that angle correctly, just like on the stone, and drag it across. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35. I usually do about 35, because what 35 gives you, because that gives you a nice and shiny edge. And you can see I still have a little bit of a concave, so halfway into the chisel there's that concave spot. Eventually that will be ground out as I sharpen it more and more. But that's a pretty darn sharp edge. So you can always test your chisel by doing a little bit of shaping. I don't know if you can see that, all the hair on the tip of the chisel. Yeah, that's about it. So basically all this strop does is it polishes out the surface. It makes it really nice and smooth. It also works that burr off, so it takes that edge right down to the point that the burr just falls off. And beautiful sharp chisel that will do some amazing things. happiness. So that's about it for maintaining, sharpening a chisel. If you take care of one of these, they will impress you every single time you use one. And a really seriously sharp chisel is an absolute joy to use. A dull chisel will cut you far more often than a sharp chisel, mainly because if it's dull, you have to bang on it, you have to put force onto it, and it slips and it slices you. Whereas a sharp chisel, most of the time, I'm not even using a mallet. I'm just putting my own force on it, wiggling it through. And it just does amazing things, slides through it like butter. So I hope you like this. Let me know in the comment below, what questions do you have? What thoughts do you have? Is there some video you'd like me to do, or any other anything particular you'd like me to show you next time? Let me know, I might do that. Also, feel free to go check out the Woodworking Junkie or one of my other videos. You might find one of those interesting. I hope you like this. Have a wonderful day. See you next time.